After a long time of being trapped on the Epic Game Store as the only way to play these games on PC, the magical Kingdom Hearts franchise has released on the Steam Store, enabling easier play on Windows PCs and of course, a realistic way to play the franchise on the Steam Deck handheld. And this seems to be the first true way to play these games on the go, considering the Epic versions of these games were very unstable and prone to crashing a lot on Windows handhelds like the Lenovo Legion Go, and getting the Epic Game Store working properly on Linux is a bit of a nightmare at times. Plus, we don't need to even talk about this. So, let's dive right in. Here is how I've gotten all of the Kingdom Hearts games to run on the original Steam Deck. First of all, let's break down what's released. The first game you can buy is the 1.5 and 2.5 HD Remix. This collection contains HD remasters of Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 from the PlayStation 2, the PS2 remake of Chain of Memories, originally released on the Game Boy Advance, and Birth by Sleep Final Mix, an HD remaster of the PlayStation Portable title. It also includes movie versions of 358 Over 2 Days Encoded, the two Nintendo DS titles, having been turned into watchable movies instead of playable games. Then we have the 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue. This contains an HD remaster of the Nintendo 3DS title Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, along with 0.2, a fragmentary passage that offers a few hours playing as Aqua between the events of Birth by Sleep and Kingdom Hearts 1, originally made as a sort of technical demo or preview of what Kingdom Hearts 3 was going to be like. We also got Back Cover here, a movie to give some context on the background story of the franchise in general. And finally, you can buy Kingdom Hearts 3 plus Remind, which is basically just Kingdom Hearts 3 with its DLC bundled in. Now let's get into it. I wouldn't bother with Proton for any of these games. The Kingdom Hearts games are far less stable when running on Windows. I tried using Proton with a few of them and actually got worse performance in games like Kingdom Hearts 3, so don't even bother with it. Now, as far as performance, things are very simple. All of the pre-PlayStation 4 era games run flawlessly. This includes Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, Chain of Memories, Birth by Sleep, and Dream Drop Distance. They will all stay locked at 60 frames per second during gameplay and 30 during cutscenes. There are also titles that have loading screens or transitions being the area where frame drops happen. When going through these older games, your perfect 60 FPS will drop to various levels for a split second when going from a cutscene to gameplay, or when you walk from one area to another and the transition loads in the newer area. But by the time you can control your character again, the frame rate will be back up at 60. But that isn't to say there is no tweaking in some of these older games. Kingdom Hearts 2 specifically is known from the Epic version to have weird slowdown during gameplay. I've found that turning VSync on will fix this slowdown and keep the game flowing smoothly. The only thing I dislike about this is the fact that the cutscenes are 30 FPS. Now, there's nothing wrong with 30 FPS cutscenes, but these games transition from gameplay to scene and back to gameplay so often, it looks and feels odd to constantly see the frames dropping and jumping from 60 to 30 to 60 to 30, etc, etc. Thankfully, the cutscenes in A Fragmentary Passage in Kingdom Hearts 3 are not limited to 30 FPS, so all the story stuff will be up higher around 60. There are only two games in this collection that will drop beneath 60 FPS. The 0.2 Birth by Sleep campaign for Aqua, and Kingdom Hearts 3. You can't really do much about 0.2, as Square Enix didn't give that game or any of the pre-Kingdom Hearts 3 collections the ability to modify much of anything in terms of graphics. You can tweak the refresh rate, frame rate limit, and resolution, and that's basically it. Now with 0.2, you're not going to get a stable 60 regardless of what you tweak. Even if you go into full screen mode and drop the resolution down at 1024 or even lower, you will still get drops during combat. So just leave it where it normally is at 720 or 800. With this, the frame rate will jump around a lot between 40 and 60, most of the drops happening during combat. I suggest locking the Steam Deck down to 40 FPS with this game and it'll pretty much be perfect. And then comes Kingdom Hearts 3. We knew things weren't going to go perfectly here. When you first boot the game, it limits the deck on settings, putting itself on the low graphical preset and lowering the rendering resolution or render scale to 50%. And I probably wouldn't touch that render resolution much. Maybe put it up on 75, but I tried putting it up at 100 and the starting room in Olympus Coliseum with the Heartless tanked the frame rate into the 20s, and later areas can drop into the 20s when events and animations happen. To be honest, I think the game looks fine with the 50% resolution scale so long as you're not connecting the Steam Deck to a TV or monitor. And if you do leave it like that, you're going to have high frame rates. It'll drop down in the 40s and occasionally the 30s, but it'll generally stay between 40 and 60. Like with 0.2, you'd be fine locking 3 down at 40 FPS. But there is another thing we could do. I'd like to reiterate that all of this is based around the original Steam Deck model, not the OLED that can go up to 90 Hz. There have been others on the web that I've seen recommending putting it on the medium preset, textures on high with motion blur off and volumetric shadows off to get a stable 60 frames per second. I've tested those settings many times on my Steam Deck and it just doesn't work. It'll run fine, but it's not keeping a stable 60 FPS during some of the more stressing battles. Even the fight against the sandworm-like enemy in Olympus dropped the frame rate down to 26 a few times. I'd play it safe and just keep the settings a little bit lower. Any of you that have a Steam Deck OLED are free to chime in if these settings actually do get you a stable 60 on that newer model. Now looking back at all of these games, I think this is pretty fantastic overall. Like I said earlier, the only thing I really dislike is the older games having their cutscenes at 30 FPS. Though that does make me wonder about the movies here. Whenever I watch the cutscenes from Days Are Coded, the deck says they're running at 60, but the way the camera movement flows really doesn't look like it. I'm just guessing here, but I think the cutscenes might actually be 30 FPS, despite what the FPS counter says. Now let's talk about instability. This game does have the capacity to crash on the Steam Deck, but it is pretty rare. I've spent around 20 hours with these games total on the deck, and I've only had one time where a game crashed on me. It was Kingdom Hearts 1 when loading a save file. It loaded a save in Destiny Islands, but gave me nothing but a black screen, so I had to reboot the Steam Deck and try to get in again. Thankfully, that's the only time it's ever crashed or frozen on me. The Lenovo Legion Go, unfortunately, is still very unstable with these games. I've had the Legion Go crash and freeze on me in Kingdom Hearts 1, Chain of Memories, and 2 several times apiece, mostly when loading into an area or spawning a battle arena in Chain of Memories. These games seem much less stable on the Legion Go and possibly Windows in general. Granted, the performance on the Legion Go is phenomenal. The older games get upward of 120 to 144 FPS when completely unlocked. They're just very unstable. And that brings us to battery life. This was interesting as I expected to have a ton of different readings for the different games. Here is what I found. Pretty much all of the older games, basically Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, Chains, Birth by Sleep, and Dream Drop, have a battery range of about 3 to 4 hours, while a Fragmentary Passage and 3 have a battery range of about 1.5 to 2 hours. So as we wrap this up, would I recommend the Kingdom Hearts franchise to Steam Deck users? Sure I would. The older games can easily hit a stable 60 FPS during gameplay, and even the newer games are still good with the deck locked down to 40. Kingdom Hearts 3 might be a bit jaggy with having to be on low settings, but it looks fine on the deck's portable screen, and having all of these games run well on a handheld and not be cloud versions like what we got on the Switch is fantastic. And that's all I have for you today. I'll be back soon with more handheld PC performance and reviews. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.